Charles Leclerc criticizes Hamilton's driving technique and says it could affect the team in Sunday's race in Monaco. Stay until the end to see Hamilton's brutal reaction. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. The roaring engines had barely gone silent when the scene at Imola descended into an atmosphere of palpable tension, one that electrified the paddock long after the final lap. The Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, anticipated to be a symbolic turnaround for Ferrari and a quiet resurgence for Mercedes, turned into a cauldron of drama, igniting a storm of controversy that would dominate headlines for days. The central spark in this emotional explosion came in the form of a fiercely disputed on-track confrontation between two of the sport's most prominent names, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. The clash, already incendiary due to the context and setting, escalated beyond racing lines and track limits, bleeding into post-race interviews, garage politics, and even regulatory deliberations at the highest levels of Formula One governance. Everything began to unravel during the latter stages of the race, specifically on lap 46, shortly after the final wave of pit stops had cycled through. Hamilton, driving with surgical precision and demonstrating exceptional tire management, had been methodically carving his way through the midfield, aided by Mercedes' surprisingly effective pace on the medium compound. The W15, which had struggled earlier in the weekend with rear-end instability and poor corner exit grip, seemed to come alive as the fuel load lightened and Hamilton dialed in his rhythm. Meanwhile, Leclerc, who had been running a defensive race on worn rubber, found himself grappling with increasing levels of thermal degradation and brake overheating. Ferrari had taken an aggressive strategic gamble, executing an early undercut that briefly handed their driver track advantage, but came at the cost of tire longevity. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. As Hamilton approached the Variante Alta chicane, he closed the gap with relentless precision, setting purple mini-sectors and lining up what appeared to be a textbook overtake. The move was well-timed, executed under braking with a confident lunge to the inside line. But rather than conceding space or adjusting his trajectory, Leclerc made a snap decision that would shape the entire narrative of the weekend. The Ferrari driver, under immense pressure from the home crowd and conscious of every tenth of a second slipping away, turned in sharply. The result was a sudden and narrow block that left Hamilton with virtually no escape route. Reacting instinctively, Hamilton tried to minimize contact, but a slight lockup on the front right tire caused the Mercedes to bounce over the inside curb, launching the car momentarily into the air. The impact upon landing was severe enough to damage the floor and compromise aerodynamic efficiency for the remainder of the race. The consequences were immediate and measurable. Hamilton, who had been on course to challenge for a podium, began losing significant lap time, eventually slipping down the order to a disappointing 7th. His frustration was audible over team radio, where he questioned the legality and safety of Leclerc's defensive maneuver. Leclerc, despite retaining position, was audibly enraged by his own fading performance, slamming his steering wheel as he crossed the finish line in 5th. Both drivers crossed the line with unfinished business, and it didn't take long for the emotional residue to manifest into something far more explosive. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. As they rolled into Parc Ferme, emotions boiled over. Hamilton, still suited and helmeted, wasted no time confronting Leclerc. With the world watching, he approached the Ferrari driver in a direct and confrontational manner, gesturing animatedly while speaking through clenched teeth. The microphones caught snippets of the exchange, but body language told the full story. Hamilton accusing, Leclerc defending, both refusing to yield an inch. Leclerc, visibly irritated and red-faced, responded with equal intensity, waving off Hamilton's accusations and insisting he had every right to defend the corner as he did. The scene attracted an immediate crowd. Mechanics, media personnel, race officials, and team representatives converged, anticipating escalation. Toto Wolff, having reviewed the onboard telemetry in the garage moments earlier, was already on his way to the steward's office with a copy of the data in hand. The Mercedes principal was uncharacteristically livid, pushing for a formal post-race investigation. He cited clear evidence from the car's sensors that indicated Leclerc had made an abrupt steering input under braking, far from the racing line, which significantly reduced Hamilton's margin for safety. On the other side, Ferrari's camp stood their ground. Frédéric Vasseur defended his driver, emphasizing that hard racing was being criminalized and that the incident did not warrant further scrutiny beyond what race control had already deemed a non-penalizable racing incident. Behind closed doors, Mercedes strategists and engineers were dissecting every data point. They believed the move violated Article 27.4 of the sporting regulations, which mandates leaving a car width when defending into a corner. Moreover, GPS overlays showed that Leclerc's deceleration pattern was inconsistent with his previous laps, hinting at a last-second maneuver rather than a natural line through the chicane. The telemetry also recorded a sudden increase in brake pressure, a clue that further fueled accusations of reactive blocking. Hamilton's car, meanwhile, showed a 19% loss in downforce efficiency post-impact, a figure corroborated by the wind tunnel data simulations run after the race. While the FIA initially refrained from intervening further, public and internal pressure mounted rapidly. FOM released uncut radio communications from both cars. On Hamilton's side, the conversation was technical and precise, with his engineer encouraging him to capitalize on Leclerc's visible tire struggles. He's losing time on exit. Go for variante. Leclerc's exchange with his race engineer, however, drew particular attention. When asked if he should maintain pace or conserve his tires, the engineer hesitated before replying, "Do what you think you need to. It's your call." Some interpreted this as Ferrari subtly authorizing an ultra-defensive posture, allowing Leclerc to take liberties in how he managed his defense. Media coverage erupted into a frenzy. Broadcasters devoted entire segments to analyzing freeze frames of the incident, superimposing ideal racing lines and potential alternative outcomes. Theories exploded online, with fans splitting into tribal factions defending their hero. Prominent ex-drivers offered conflicting takes. Jenson Button called the move tight but not dirty, while Damon Hill suggested Leclerc was toying with the gray areas of legality. Sky Sports F1 ran a one-hour special featuring side-by-side footage of similar incidents from previous seasons to dissect whether precedent supported a penalty. In the official post-race press conference, the tension between the two drivers was palpable. Seated adjacent, they offered curt, clipped responses. Charles Leclerc has always been fast, blisteringly, almost violently fast. But what he's becoming now is something far more dangerous. Something far more evolved. Because speed alone never built a legacy. And Leclerc knows that. He's no longer chasing just lap time. He's chasing understanding, craft, mastery. And in that pursuit, he's turning toward a blueprint left behind by the man who rewrote the modern Formula One gospel, Lewis Hamilton. Leclerc didn't just compliment Hamilton. He dissected him. He's not just fast, Charles said in a moment of striking vulnerability. He's a relentless architect of performance. That's not flattery. That's forensic admiration. He wasn't talking about a 7-time world champion. He was talking about an obsession, a method, a mindset. The man who, even after 2 decades in the sport, is the last to leave the paddock. The one who listens through every technical debrief as if the fate of the universe depends on it. The one who doesn't simply drive the car, he deconstructs it, rebuilds it, questions its soul. And now, Charles is walking straight into that fire. He's adopting Hamilton's throttle modulation techniques, especially in low-speed corners, the technical black holes where Ferrari's SF25 has hemorrhaged performance all season. Baku, Miami, Monaco. Places where traction isn't just a necessity, it's the dividing line between podium glory and strategic irrelevance. These were Leclerc's Achilles' heels. Not anymore. Because Charles isn't just copying Hamilton. He's becoming Hamilton, in the ways that matter most. In the deep, unseen layers of driver intelligence and mechanical empathy. If it's the right thing to do, I'll use it, Leclerc declared. Not with shame. With resolve. It wasn't imitation. It was evolution. And that, right there, is the spark that could blow the season wide open. Because when the native prince of Monaco, the golden child of Ferrari, the heir to a decades-old dream, begins to channel the style, technique, and mentality of the man Ferrari brought in as his potential replacement, that's not just news. That's a paradigm shift. That's a storyline too explosive to contain. That's a civil war within a team wrapped in legacy and mythology. This isn't just build-up for another race. This is a Shakespearean power shift unfolding in real time. And the stage? Monaco. The most sacred altar in the F1 calendar. A place where horsepower is muted and finesse is everything. Where every inch is a trap, every apex a whisper, every wall a scalpel. Where the difference between pole and P9 can be a heartbeat. Hamilton has danced here like a phantom. While others fight the circuit, he seduces it. Slip angle precision. Traction mastery. He doesn't attack Monaco, he floats through it. Watch the onboard from 2019. It's not driving. It's poetry through violence. Leclerc, in contrast, has been a tragic hero on these streets. Blistering in qualifying, sometimes transcendent, but undone on Sunday by crashes, strategy heartbreaks, or mechanical betrayals. Monaco has been his theater of pain. But now, that pain has taught him, refined him, and watching Hamilton has given him the final piece. Now he's learning restraint, learning rhythm, turning raw aggression into surgical artistry. He's not just fast anymore. He's controlled. And that is terrifying. Because a fast Leclerc is dangerous. But a controlled Leclerc, one who's borrowing Hamilton's emotional telemetry and technical cadence, that's something we've never seen before. That's not just a threat to his rivals. That's a threat to the entire hierarchy of Formula One. You can feel it in the garage. The Ferrari engineers know it. There's a new texture to his feedback. Less noise. More signal. He's not complaining about the car, he's diagnosing it. Strategists are recalibrating race simulations. Data analysts are tracking throttle traces with raised eyebrows. His telemetry is beginning to echo Hamilton's. Not perfectly, but enough to scare people. And somewhere in the Mercedes garage, Hamilton knows too. He sees it. He feels it. He may have come to Ferrari to write his final chapter in crimson ink, but the man whose driving style he inadvertently mentored from afar may now be writing a chapter of his own. In the same book. On the same page. Two artists. One canvas. Monaco. And when the lights go out this Sunday, don't just watch for the usual title fight. Watch for the transition. The passing of invisible knowledge from one generation to the next. Not through words, but through throttle. Through tire slip. Through the silent, brutal language of apexes and breakpoints. Because this might be more than just a Grand Prix. This might be the beginning of a new era. And Leclerc? He's not waiting for permission. He's taking the crown, 1 millimeter at a time. And just as the latest chapter in Lewis Hamilton's astonishing metamorphosis begins to unfold in the scarlet overalls of Ferrari, the engineers back at Maranello have unveiled a bold surprise of their own, one that could change the course of the season and quite possibly reshape Ferrari's entire technical philosophy. In an audacious nod to the past fused with a laser-focused view of the present, Ferrari has resurrected a rear wing that once played a crucial role in conquering the tight and treacherous streets of Monaco. But don't be fooled. This is not some nostalgic homage to past glories. This is a cold-blooded, data-driven gamble. A recalibration of everything they thought they knew about their car. A surgical strike aimed at one of the trickiest circuits in motorsport history. This newly reimagined high-downforce rear wing, specifically tailored for maximum grip in slow-speed corners, is designed for circuits like Monaco where the margin for error is microscopic and the price of hesitation is catastrophic. Paired with aggressive revisions to the car's suspension geometry, including a lowered ride height and stiffer damping settings, Ferrari is shifting its development compass. The team that once favored straight-line efficiency and compromised stability is now swinging dramatically in the other direction, finally prioritizing balance and predictability, two things that have been sorely missing since winter testing in Bahrain. And perhaps no one has felt that absence more acutely than Lewis Hamilton. From the first laps of pre-season testing, Hamilton's voice has been a consistent, and at times desperate chorus of concern. Braking instability. Mid-corner nervousness. Rear-end unpredictability under load. These have been the ghosts haunting his Ferrari debut. But at last, those echoes are being answered. With this Monaco-specific package, Hamilton might finally be sitting in a machine that feels sculpted for him, not in spite of him. For the first time in his short Ferrari career, the 7-time world champion may not need to wrestle the car into submission. He can coax it, manipulate it, trust it. And that changes everything. Because Monaco isn't just another Grand Prix. It's a scalpel, carving open a driver's soul for the world to see. Every millimeter matters. Every brush with the barrier is either poetry or a pit stop. Qualifying is more than crucial, it's destiny. And if Hamilton nails it, if he threads that blood-red Ferrari through the eye of the Monte Carlo needle, then the possibility of a podium, once a tantalizing dream, becomes a tangible mission. But let's pull the lens back even further. Hamilton arrives in Monaco glowing with momentum, having just completed one of the most ruthless, calculated drives of his post-Mercedes career. In Imola, He started a distant P12. By the checkered flag, he was P4. No gimmicks. No safety car magic. Just raw, clinical brilliance. After the race, he said something that sent chills through the paddock. If we qualify better, we'll be winning. That wasn't optimism. That wasn't wishful thinking. That was a warning. And everyone heard it. Meanwhile, across the Ferrari garage, Charles Leclerc carries a very different kind of energy into Monaco. One soaked in frustration, introspection, and perhaps a hint of envy. Imola should have been his weekend. Instead, it was a strategic implosion. A poorly timed pit call. A missed undercut. And then came that radio message, icy, venomous, unforgettable. I don't care, we are speaking about ourselves. A phrase that sliced through the team's carefully cultivated facade of unity and exposed the fractures beneath. But Monaco is home for Leclerc. These streets are his. And just days after his Imola heartbreak, he has emerged not bitter, but changed. In an uncharacteristically candid interview, Leclerc admitted something shocking, that Hamilton's relentless discipline, his methodical process, his obsession with data and setup, is reshaping how he approaches the craft. That he is, slowly, learning from the very man who once felt like a threat to his throne within Ferrari. It's humility, yes, but more than that, it's the beginning of something dangerous. Because a self-aware Leclerc is no longer just a fast driver. He's a smarter one. And that's terrifying. So here we are, on the cusp of a Grand Prix that feels less like a race and more like a psychological crucible. Ferrari isn't just testing a new rear wing, they're testing the limits of coexistence between two titans. Two philosophies. Two legacies. And for the first time all season, the car might actually be worthy of the men driving it. Hamilton, the relentless architect of pressure, now senses blood in the water. Leclerc, the wounded prince, is rediscovering his edge in the one place on Earth where he knows every bump, every ripple, every trick of the light. This isn't just about Monaco. This is a referendum on the future of Ferrari. On whether two alpha drivers can co-elevate rather than combust. On whether the ghosts of strategic failure and development indecision can finally be buried beneath the glittering lights of Monte Carlo. And if either man gets it right this weekend, just once under this kind of pressure, with this kind of setup, the consequences could ripple through the paddock all the way to Abu Dhabi. Because the Scuderia, for the first time in a very long time, is no longer just fighting to survive. They are daring to believe. And in Formula One, belief, when paired with the right machinery, can be the most dangerous weapon of all. Toto didn't waste time. He could read the storm building in his driver like an incoming tide. He stepped forward, voice calm but sharp. Lewis, he began with deliberate control. What exactly happened with Charles out there? The world saw it, but I want to hear it from you. Hamilton didn't sit. He remained standing, pacing slightly, then turning abruptly toward his team boss. He waited, he said, voice low but laced with heat. He waited until I committed, until I was fully beside him. Then he shut the door like he was closing the final lap in Monaco. There was no room. He knew it. That wasn't about defending, it was about punishing. Toto exhaled, exchanging a brief glance with the data analyst beside him. The younger man gave a short nod, tapping a screen that showed a burst of telemetry data from the turn in question. There's a spike in steering input right before contact, he confirmed. You lost close to 8% aerodynamic efficiency in the front wing immediately after. That's not minor. That's performance gone. Downforce compromised. Strategy destroyed. Hamilton's fists clenched at his sides. He did it with intent. It's not speculation. It's not just aggressive driving. That was personal. He's been building to this since we squeezed him wide at Bahrain. He's been simmering, waiting for a chance to make a statement. And today, he made one. With my car. Toto rubbed his jaw, absorbing every word. The onboard footage supports your take. He had a microsecond to make a decision, and he chose the one that would force contact. The kind of move that skirts the edge of plausible deniability. It's not reckless, not clumsy. It's calculated, and that makes it more dangerous. Hamilton nodded grimly, walking to the window where he could see the Ferrari crew celebrating like the incident had never happened, like the contact was just another footnote in a race filled with glory. He thinks he got one over me. That he's earned respect by slamming the door and holding position. But respect isn't taken by force, it's built over years of fair racing. He just demolished his. Toto took a seat, gesturing for Lewis to join him. Look, we'll initiate a full report. I'll speak with the race director. We'll present every piece of data we have. The FIA may or may not act. This sport's politics run deeper than fairness sometimes. But that's not the part that matters most. What matters is how you respond. You don't let this become emotional warfare. You don't give him the satisfaction of knowing he's rattled you. Lewis sat down finally, not to rest, but to contain the fire burning inside him. This isn't about emotion. It's about standards. We've all had battles, wheel to wheel with Fernando, with Max, even with Nico when things were tense. But they knew where the line was. This kid doesn't. He thinks hard racing means erasing the line altogether. Toto's eyes didn't blink. He's hungry. He's under pressure at Ferrari. He's trying to reinvent himself as the alpha there, especially with the eyes of Maranello constantly watching. But hunger doesn't excuse recklessness. You don't need to prove anything. Your record speaks louder than any highlight reel he's trying to make for Instagram. Hamilton leaned forward, voice quieter but colder. He wants to play games? Fine. But I've been in this arena long enough to know how it ends for people like him. One bad move too many, and suddenly he's the villain, not the prodigy. If he keeps this up, someone's going to get hurt. And if it's me next time, don't expect me to be so diplomatic. There was a weight to his words, not just threat, but promise. Not the kind of promise spoken in anger, but the kind that builds in silence, measured by seconds lost, chances ruined, and rivals who confuse silence for surrender. Toto adjusted the cuffs of his shirt, his mind already shifting into damage control, media strategy, internal team briefings. We stay focused. We stay calm. Let Ferrari walk into their own trap if that's the road they've chosen. You keep delivering results. You keep driving like the legend you are. We'll win this championship by being relentless and precise, not emotional. Next time, when you line up behind him, you don't leave him an inch. But you do it clean. You do it your way. Hamilton gave a single nod. Not a nod of agreement, but of understanding. He didn't need revenge. He needed justice. And in Formula One, justice isn't served in statements or press releases. It's served in laps, in overtakes, in a checkered flag waving as you cross the line first while the other guy watches from his mirrors. He stood, picked up his gloves slowly, and looked one last time out the window at the Ferrari pit. His voice was a whisper, but every word was carved in steel. He's playing with fire. And I've been burning longer than he's even been in this sport. Beyond the confines of the motorhome, the entire paddock had descended into a maelstrom of chaos and speculation. It wasn't just a media circus anymore. It was a full-blown eruption of scrutiny, emotion, and conflicting narratives. Broadcasters scrambled to adjust programming, sending correspondents sprinting to pit walls and hospitality suites in search of statements, reactions, or even the slightest hint of how deep the tension ran. The footage of the aborted handshake had gone viral at lightning speed, reshared on countless platforms, dissected from every possible frame, and transformed into a social phenomenon. The incident was no longer just a blip in the race. It had become the nucleus of a cultural flashpoint. Thousands of theories were circulating across the digital sphere, some outrageous, some eerily plausible, all trying to decode what Hamilton had whispered under his breath during that moment of visible disdain. Amateur lip readers filled forums and comment sections with screenshots, guesses, and slow-motion reenactments, each interpretation feeding the fire.